I can't help but feel like I'm forgetting something. I mean, I got my lashes on, my highlights popping. Just seems like something's missing. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Lindsay, also known as Shadowplay, M-U-A. This is actually my first YouTube tutorial. Yay! And today's video is going to be all about brows. So, if you haven't already noticed, I do not have real eyebrows. I've been shaving them off for probably about 7 years now, and it's just, long story short, real eyebrows are too much work. I'd rather just throw some on every day and go without having to worry about like plucking and going to get threaded and all that crap. A lot of these tricks can definitely work if you just have really sparse or really light brows, but obviously there's a lot of people out there that don't have eyebrows for one reason or another, so I feel like this tutorial is kind of universal in that everyone can get something from it. So without any further jibber jabber from me, let's jump into the tutorial. Alright, so first things first, as you can see, I do my eyes before I do my brows. The reason for that is mostly because when I prime my eyes, then I can take all my priming products all the way up past my brow bone, and it's just gonna give the brows the same like insurance that my eyeshadow has. When I prime my eyes, I actually just use MAC Studio Fix Concealer, and I take it all the way up, and then I coat it with a little bit of MAC Mineralized powder. And I definitely think it's important to put the powder over top of any liquid products for your eyeshadow, for your brows, because it's just going to make sure your brow products have something to grip onto, and they're not just going to slip and slide all over and not stick. Alright, so for my pink brows, my secret weapon is Candy Yum Yum Lip Pencil by MAC. And yes, mine is like a tiny little baby right now. I actually went to buy a new one yesterday and we were out of it and I was so upset. And I'm gonna scream if we don't get it back. First, I like to kind of map out where I'm gonna fill everything in. I always start my brows right where I feel the little dent here from my orbital bone. So if you want to help finding yours, you can just take your finger and kind of just feel around there, and where that little bone is, that's kind of where you want to start your frontal. Okay, so first I start by just going in and kind of mapping out where I want my front half to be here. So if you guys ever need help like figuring out where your tail should start to kind of descend here, just raise your eyebrows up and you'll see where the muscle kind of naturally has like a curve, and that's where your arch should be. It also helps me to prevent my arch from being too like pointy, because you can see if you follow exactly where this goes, there's a perfect like curve there. So that's kind of what I trace when I'm drawing my brows on. I'm kind of mapping them out. You can always go in and just measure to like the side of your nose from the inside, the inner corner of your eye, straight up. That's going to be about where you want your brows to start. I feel like everyone knows that at this point. And then where the outer corner of your eye and your nose line up, that's going to be your tail. Okay, so at this point I have them pretty much mapped out where I want them to be. Quick note, this line work does not have to be pretty at all. It's obviously very like chunky, kind of like smudgy looking and not smooth. That's all going to change when we go in with the eyeshadow. But another tip too, when it comes to making sure your brows are nice and balanced, look at it from different perspectives. So like if you tilt your head back, you can see if one of them is higher up, if one of them comes down too far, it'll become like a lot more apparent. And same with kind of like tilting your head forward like that too. You can see exactly where they line up. Okay, so I'm just gonna go in and kind of lightly shade this area in. I'm not gonna go too ham here. I'm not using like a whole lot of pressure. I just like to do this before I go in with eyeshadow because it's gonna make the eyeshadow a lot more opaque. And once again, I'm not trying to make this like too perfect. And as I get towards the front, I'm using just less and less pressure. And I almost leave this front half almost like blank, because that's where our lightest like transition color is gonna go. Alright, so now that these guys are all mapped out and filled in, it's time for step 2. I'm going to go in with my Morphe 35S palette. It's all smudgy and it looks kind of gross, I'm sorry. I use 3 different shades from this palette when I do my pink brows. I use, where is it? This lightest pink here. And then this neon looking pink. And then for today, I'm actually going to make it a little bit more dramatic. We're going to do a little bit of a purple ombre, so I'm going to go in with this color right here. I'm actually going to put an effort today. And I'm going to be using my Morphe E165 brush. It's like a dense little angle brush. He's got some really stiff bristles, so it's going to pick up a lot of product. And it's nice and thick, so it's going to actually coat a lot all at once. So I'm going to just start with that lightest shade of pink I showed you. And that's where we're going to go in and start filling in that frontal. And as you can see, that shadow kind of starts to soften out the edges, so it doesn't look so, like, what's the word? Like chalky looking, I don't know. I'm going in with that little deeper, more vibrant pink. I'm taking that all the way down to the tip. They always look so ugly at this stage, but don't worry, that's where concealer comes in. And see how much smoother those edges look now that we kind of like blended them out with the powder with the eyeshadow. They look so ugly now. Oh! Now we're going to start deepening these guys up. I decided I actually want to pick up a little bit of this color right here too, to start transitioning from the pink to the purple. And this is going to go kind of like the outer third, maybe tail to mid arch right here. And at this point, I'm just focusing on the blend, not worrying too much about if I, go over my initial lines. I just want this to be like a seamless, nice ombre. Oh my god, I just noticed that I have this on my forehead. Why? Alright, now I'm going in with that deepest shade of purple right at my tail here. I actually don't know how I feel about this brush. I just got it not too long ago. I was using a different brush for like years. And I feel like this is a little bit streakier than I had the one that I had before. I'm still not completely sold on Morphe brushes. So, you guys comment below and tell me like your favorite Morphe brushes. Because everyone that I've got, I'm not crazy about. And I feel like this little like pulling down motion is really gonna help to blend these colors together. So we don't have any like lines of demarcation where we can see one color kind of end and the rest start. We don't want that. We want it to be really smooth. Alright, so now that we have these thick ass pink and purple caterpillars on our face, we're gonna go in and sculpt them and make them actually look pretty. Alright, so I'm gonna go in with my trusty MAC 212 brush. And anyone that knows me knows how much I love him. It's this flat little definer brush. And the reason I like it is because you can just get the most perfect straight line, and it's almost like a little stamp. So if you're using like a little angle brush to clean your brows up, sometimes it's just not covering as much surface area at once, so you have to kind of like work extra hard to get from point A to point B. This is almost like a stamp, so I can just go right through and just mark my edges and then just blend. Okay, so small detail that I think is really important. When I pick up concealer, I actually like dip both sides of the brush because it helps the brush to be like extra skinty and just like super nice and precise. And I'm using MAC Studio Finish Concealer. It's like the nicest, like smoothest, most opaque concealer for like cleanup jobs, which this definitely is. See, I'm kind of like stamping and then pulling down to kind of blend. Okay, so now that I carved out the bottom, I'm gonna work on the top. I kind of like to make sure the bottoms here are even first before I move on to carving out the top part. I like to start with the tail. Get it real nice and sharp. That's like my #1 pet peeve is when I see people with brows where like the tail is blurry or something, like it's not perfectly sharp. And it's like the easiest little step you can take. So when people don't do it, it drives me crazy. And I know not everybody wants a brow tail that's so sharp you can stab someone with it, but like that's what I want. And I'm kind of using like the side of this brush when I do the top. It can be kind of tough to do the top part. I definitely know that's like the part I mess up on the most. It's easier to do on other people. So with that being said, when I do like my top section here, I have to kind of make this like Rosie the Riveter pose so I can reach all the way to the top here. And once again, you can kind of lift your brows up so you can just follow the curve of that muscle for your arch. And I will say too, I typically do my brows before I do my foundation or anything, just because like I like to go over this little mark that's happening for me, like trying to carve this out. I'm like scraping up the foundation that's under. So that's why, pro tip, I like to do my brows before I do my foundation. And then I'm not picking up any more concealer, but I'm still gonna go in and kind of like soften this front out a little bit more. And you can kind of move that product around with this brush without like causing it to look streaky or anything. Alright, so now that I have it basically carved out, I'm actually just going to go in and kind of nitpick, maybe thin out some certain areas that I feel like look too thick. Like this tail. Okay, so I feel pretty good about these brows so far. I feel like I like the shaping, symmetry is good. So I'm just gonna go in with my MAC Studio Fix powder, and I'm gonna actually set the areas where I place the concealer. I'm just using this kind of like big flat brush. This is a Sigma E60. And this is really important because it's gonna mattify the concealer that we put on so it doesn't like blur and bleed, which is like also a huge pet peeve of mine. It's just like blurry brows. Nobody wants that. I mean, unless you do want that, then more power to you. And at this point, sometimes I'll go back in with a little bit of my eyeshadow transition color and just kind of bring that up farther. But I'm not going to do that right now because I feel like this is fine. Alright, so that is the finished product. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a couple tips. Even if you don't have shaved off brows, hopefully you can still take some of my advice as far as like placement and shaping goes. And if you do have eyebrows, the lip liner method and the eyeshadow method still totally works as long as your brows aren't like super dark and coarse. I've used lip liner a million times to give people colored brows that actually have eyebrows, so just know it totally does work. And of course, if you like this video, if you liked me, give me a thumbs up on this video so I know that I'm doing something right. Don't forget to hit subscribe and hit the little bell notification button down below so you get alerted when I post new content. And that is about it. I will see you guys in probably like 2 weeks when I actually get around to editing this and posting it. I will keep you guys updated on Instagram at Shadowplay_MUA. It's been real. Catch you later. Peace out.